We've nearly finished. It's our last day in Madeira. How do you think we've done?
So much better than I thought we might.
Really?
I really thought we might come and just find it was all impossible and that we'd only done a fifth of it and the whole thing has been a bit of a disaster, so I'm happy that didn't happen.
But that's kind of what's kept us going, isn't it? I mean, sometimes I've felt I'm too tired, I can't think through this again. And then I thought, but we've got this month, I've got to do it. And we pushed on and got on with it. And did a lot of hours. I was quite surprised. All my life I've jotted down how many hours work I've done every day for decades. I didn't know you did the same. And what's the sums here?
Well, I've found that I've averaged a very consistent, at least over the course of a week, with 6 days on, 1 day off.
Yeah, the lovely days off we had.
Average 5 hours pretty consistently per day, and yeah, for me that's been a really nice balance of being able to do lots, but also not getting worn out, and still having time for some other things that I've had to do as well. And
I've done a bit less than that. But we made, didn't we, before we even started, trying to decide whether we'd do this at all, we added up how many hours we thought the whole job would take, which is a bizarre thing to do. But actually it's turned out we were reasonably accurate, didn't it?
Yeah, we guessed via completely different methods. We guessed 300 collective hours. And yeah, I've done 120 so far, you've done about 90. We've got some left to do. But yeah, it's sort of the right ballpark in any case, and it's quite interesting that we weren't miles off, I guess, because we do have some training in how to do this.
But it wasn't just this week, was it? No, we've certainly had a lot of practice in our lives, but it wasn't just this week. I mean, we didn't start from nothing, did we? Can we remember what we did before? I mean, we've known we were going to do this book for some months, and we've collected up and sent each other, whenever we came across something interesting, we sent it to each other, and then you made up all sorts of wonderful spreadsheets, which I was so grateful to you doing, all the technology, which included all the papers we wanted to read. And then, was it when we got here that you made the spreadsheet for each chapter and what each of us had to do in that chapter?
Yeah, well, the first thing we did when we came here was turn our list of things we might add into a list of, okay, this is what goes with this chapter. And then we colour-coded them according to who gets to do them.
And sometimes I've come to one that's my colour, the turquoisey colour for me, and thought, why did I ever say I do this? And then other ones are like, oh yes, I'm looking forward to doing this one, reading this paper again, whatever.
Yeah, and I guess throughout there's been a danger of feeling trapped by your previous thoughts, in the sense of, well, we put this on the list, so it must be really good or important, and actually in some cases much better to say no, that is new and we thought it might be interesting, but actually it's not really relevant. And of course, to balance that out with the knowledge, because we weren't allowed to add many words to the overall count, everything that you add, in theory, something has to be lost. Or
that was very difficult. I found it several times. I'd see some references that were quite old, and I thought, oh, surely they can go because I need to put in these new ones. And then I'd look back to what they were to check, and oh no, that's really important. I remember that. We can't let that go. Very difficult juggling. I hope we haven't packed it too full of new things, but you don't want to lose the beginning of the stories of why people, what question they were asking and where we've got with that question. You don't want to just have the latest science. So it's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess part of the scientific method is to falsify past claims and to, build in that kind of destructive sense, if you like. And so in some cases it is important to lose things that just have been disproven, as it were, or for which there isn't any longer much supporting evidence. But in many cases also, as you say, it's important to see the prehistory of what there is now, and partly because with each niche within this field that we're thinking about, people start by asking the beginning questions that, as someone who's trying to get a grasp on the field in the first place, they're the most useful places to start.
And they're great questions, aren't they? I mean, what is the nature of, been asked for thousands of years in one form or another. What is mind? Is mind separate from this supposed physical world? Who am I? Is there an observer? Can you have consciousness without somebody being conscious? Wonderful, wonderful questions, which is what keeps me going, that I still, after all these years of doing this, I mean, I started writing the first edition, 25 years ago. I'm still asking the same questions, but I know a lot more. But when it's got too hard, we've come down here and looked at the banner that we've made. This is something that the publishers wrote and has been very encouraging. A new edition shouldn't involve a major overhaul. So when something's felt too overwhelming, thought we can't do everything, and it's not a major overhaul. I hope it is, of bringing up to date, and also going back and trying to explain things better that perhaps weren't clear before. We've had some interesting disputes, haven't we?
Yeah, it's funny how your own past writing can seem very alien to you. And I've also had the weird phenomenon of really being quite uncertain a lot of the time who originally wrote something, whether it was something last week or a few years ago.
That surprised me.
And so, getting to that mode of being willing to challenge what's there on the page and ask, does that really make sense, or could it be phrased more clearly, or is it deeply ambiguous?
Well, that's quite good. If we didn't remember who wrote this, it doesn't matter. We have to decide now, can we improve it? Sometimes just changing one word. We've argued over one word, this or that or something simple like that many times. But I must say, we've kind of talked about the hard parts, but what I've really enjoyed is just playing these questions, but mainly getting my head around a lot of the new ideas and rethinking old ideas in terms of, for example, predictive processing, which is so much, it's in the previous edition a bit, but it's so much more helpful now, I think. And I've really enjoyed that. And that's one of the reasons I'm really glad that we came here and did this.
Yeah, and I think some of the ways in which the field is developing, because it is still a fairly young field in a certain sense at least, but particularly the adversarial collaboration angle of, okay, these big theories of consciousness make claims, the claims should be testable, let's actually go and test them systematically and try and reduce bias in all the systematic ways. That's like that's something that was really missing in the last edition, and it's been very satisfying to be able to put it in there.
But that's not just adversarial, is only one way of doing it. I mean, people have been trying to test them, but that's not come forward. When we went to Tucson, in partly to encourage us to decide about doing the book or not, the Tucson conference last year, that was something that I think struck us both. At last, people were saying, well, this predicts this, IIT theory predicts this, global workspace theory predicts this, let's go and do it. And then even better when they get together with somebody from each side and make the adversarial collaboration. So things are really moving in the field.
Yeah, I think there's more macro stuff happening now. There's been lots of micro testing, of course, but to really do that big picture of does this stack up against the other thing well.
Yes. Well, what do we still have to do?
Plenty.
Well, we're going to go home tomorrow, and my job, I think, is to go through the entire book again and go through all the comments that we've made. We haven't explained that, have we? That we've sat here all these 2 weeks. We had different approaches. That was very interesting because I wanted to read each chapter first and then go to the list of things I had to do and then put them all in and check that they were okay. And you did it a different way?
Yeah, I just wanted to give myself some quick wins of ticking the things off my each spreadsheet tab and doing that before rereading the whole chapters and then reading with the view of what I've recently changed. So
I think that might have been a better approach in general, but we weren't to know, were we? Anyway, the fact is we've done it. So every chapter now has, most of the queries are sorted out. The ones that aren't, it says who's got to do them. I'm going to go through the entire book and then accept or reject all the changes and make a final document, and then we'll get together for a last bit. There'll be a lot of fiddly bits to do towards the end, but anyway, that's the plan. How exciting.
Yeah, I think we might actually meet the deadline.
We might, and if we do, I hope all of you who read it will enjoy what we've done.
Yeah, the point of it is to make it work better for people who read it, so yeah, hope it does.